to the Halcyon podcast. God damn, we are here yet again, fellow Gunners. This is going to be what was intended to be a roundtable discussion on the pre-season of the greatest football club in the world, Arsenal Football Club. We all know that's not necessarily true, keep it under your hats, but I'm a football fan through and through, raised on the mighty Gunners, and I will defend them to the hilt to a certain extent, if that hilt's not that close to my hand. Anyway, point being is, the season has begun, and I think I speak for most Arsenal fans when I say I looked at that team sheet and felt immediately underwhelmed by the team we were fielding. And there are a number of reasons for that, and I think we'll get the main issue out of the way in a moment, but the first issue I want to touch on to any Arsenal fans, or indeed actually any other teams fans who'd like to point the finger and say same old Arsenal, right? Would you, for one moment, take a look at the team we fielded comparative to the squad that we possess against the Liverpool side that everyone knew was going to be restructured, refinanced and outfitted this season to make a charge for the top four? We were dominating the majority of that game with a team that I looked at and thought, really? Really? In my opinion, the fact that Debussy wasn't utilised is a questionable one, considering that you're fielding two relatively inexperienced centre-backs. Monreal wasn't utilised in that position. Effectively, you know, you're already at defensive disadvantage. Yes, you've got Coquelin and El Nene in the middle marshalling. They did fantastically well, pressing the ball, winning it back on numerous occasions. They're a partnership in the making if they can be accommodated somehow, which is a big headache for a lot of Arsenal fans considering the wealth of midfield talent that we have at our disposal. Nevertheless, as far as the Liverpool game is concerned, my disappointment extends to two very specific areas. Number one, the fact that the team we fielded is, again, not a team that reflects the standard of the squad that we have at our disposal. And secondly, it highlights a wider issue, which is Arsenal's inability or reluctance to act in the transfer market. I see both sides of the equation, put it this way. I see every Arsenal fan's frustration, and it's difficult to relay if you're not an Arsenal fan, because unlike Arsenal fans, most team seasons differ season to season. They'll hit highs, they'll hit lows, but they'll be along for the ride. Most Arsenal fans can chart exactly how the season is going to go, irrespective of what the team we field is, who we're playing against. We follow ebb and flows and trends that always reflect the same every single season. We start off slow, we build to an apex, we come around December time, Christmas time, where things are still going relatively well, we're still pressing and doing well, and then January through to March, we nosedive in form. The number of competitions we're in, the relatively lacking depth in squad, most of the time, I'd say our squad is stronger than it's been in a long time, but the most critical issue, the fitness and the consistency of the players at our disposal. Half of the Arsenal squad at some stage or another has sustained serious injuries, and as I look now, there are a number of very, very prominent absentees that are making a bit of a habit of it. Players we can't depend on to be their magnificent selves week in, week out, and that's a problem. Because when Wenger is saying that you have this depth of squad and you're pointing to players, that's great, but how many of them are you fielding and how often are you fielding them? And this is where the transfer market has to become an issue. It has to become an issue. When you refuse, for whatever reason, to structure and rebuild a team around the needs of a title-winning season when it's in your grasp, is a failure of both management and the board of directors. I don't care how anyone wants to cut it in Arsenal's, in the board's favour or in Wenger's favour. When you look at the team that we fielded, there was no excuse. No excuse to field a team with that odd balance of inexperience and lack of star quality, considering the wealth of talent at our disposal. Now, the excuse that I've heard some people tout is the European Championships. Well, many of your players have been given time off. They're off on their holidays. They need to recharge. Do you want to bring them back early and potentially? I have a big problem with this. Every other team is experiencing the exact same problem. every other team without fail. And you can't use it as an excuse to say, oh, well, a lot of our players are, away. Well, no. If you have top players, you have to bear that into consideration. That's where squad depth comes into play. Add to this the inability to be able to move quickly in the market for a central defender, citing lack of options or excessive money. Arsenal were the most profitable team in terms of the Premier League winnings last season. They earned more from finishing second than Leicester did winning the damn thing. And that, for me, as an Arsenal fan, I don't speak for all Arsenal fans. I have to admit, I speak from the perspective of I'm trying to understand it from both perspectives. But as an Arsenal fan, it's infuriating to see season after season a lack of investment in the team in a meaningful way. Granit Xhaka was a signing that excited me, but I think deep down, he is a signing that's not going to come into his own for another 2 years. Maybe even longer. He's 24, so he's in that threshold of he's not quite at the peak of his powers, but he's been described by a lot of people as a new Schweinsteiger. I don't like comparisons like that because players are their own. They're free to create their own legends and their own styles of play. But he's been comparative as a leader and as a future captain of the club, which is great. Excellent investment, excellent signing. But the excuse, again, another excuse is, well, Arsenal finished second last season. Did we? Did we really? Look at the circumstances of where we finished second. Every club failed last season, where Leicester just remained consistently a good team. Were they the best team? I think is a point of debate. Might be a controversial thing to say, but I do not believe Leicester were a world-beating team that romped to the Premier League title. Every other team around them was capitulating, including us. Had any team strung together a bit of consistency with the kind of quality that they had in terms of the top four teams, I think someone would have turned it around. 10 points is not an insurmountable amount that you could conceive. They just dropped, weirdly enough, not to the lower teams or to the top teams, but the middle of the Premier League was a lot stronger last season. A lot of draws, a lot of losses where you wouldn't expect it. Which comes on to the next point that I wanted to make, which is, as far as Arsenal fans are concerned, the doom and gloom. Treat what I've just said as a preface to the main point I would like to make. It's one game. We bagged 3 goals with a relatively inexperienced side that lacked what I would consider to be that attacking flair and that creativity. With 2 centre-backs with probably fewer than 10 appearances for the side between them. Holding is brand new off the shelf. Chambers had a little bit of a run last season before sustaining an injury and then being replaced. He was utilised as a central defensive midfielder for a time. El Nene was brought in to sort of solidify that role. I believe El Nene and Coquelin will end up competing for the central. I don't see how you can accommodate Cazorla, Ozil, Ramsey, Alexis Sanchez, Giroud, and potentially another couple of players, depending on who we sign in that formation, without dropping one of the 2 of them. And based on his perhaps more attacking aspects, I think El Nene might suffer as a result of that. But then again, having that kind of balance and that kind of depth in midfield is fantastic. The doom and gloom seems to be as a result of failing to strengthen its centre back, which was a position where everyone kind of admitted that we needed anyway, and a striker. I take the point that I agree. I think a striker is something that is desperately needed when you've got a player like Mesut Ozil who's serving it up on a plate. And again, as an Arsenal fan, it's difficult to relay this to people who don't follow him week in, week out. But Mesut Ozil is one of the best footballers I've ever had the privilege of watching. Been to a couple of games recently, and the man he will make something out of utter it's very difficult to describe. But when he's on the ball, I don't remember seeing him being tackled. I don't remember him misplacing a pass. I don't remember him being put in a position that he couldn't find a way out of, and that is true footballing mastery. No, he doesn't score enough goals, but then again, look at the amount of assists he progresses. I think he is the key. He is the most important player to Arsenal. If we were to lose him at any point, I think that's really, really bad news. But the point at this stage seems to be for many Arsenal fans, is Wenger going to go or is he going to stay? I don't believe either way it makes a tremendous amount of deal in the short of a deal in the short run, because I think any manager could walk into this Arsenal team and make the same performances, generate the same kind of output. I think so long as there's sufficient restructuring and sufficient finance put into the team, then great. However, when you look at the transfer rumours, you don't read too much into these, of course, but the same names that keep popping up at the moment are Mustafi and Lacazette. If you signed either of those players, then I'd be very, very happy. But if you ask me, if I was going to put emphasis on a position, I would place it on attack, because we need a consistent goal scorer. Giroud, for his performances and when he steps up to the plate, he's a good, excellent goal scorer, fantastic goal scorer, but his stats are not overwhelmingly good. And I think that if you do play Sanchez alongside him, you're losing something of what makes Sanchez so good, which is his darting runs, his ability to take the ball and run at defences. Oxlade-Chamberlain is coming back into that kind of role as well. I'll be interested to see how they utilise him over the course of the season if he manages to stay fit. Again, Wilshere is another player that you've got to start to think about bringing back into your team at some point if he can start producing decent performances. And then Xhaka, where do you put him in the fold? A great amount of choices in midfield, but absolutely critical that they invest in a striker and a centre-back before the transfer window closes. Otherwise, Arsenal fans, get ready for another season of mediocrity, to get elated by Christmas, depressed by March, and then happy St. Tottenham's Day come the end of the season. So, if anyone disagrees with any of the points that I've made, I'd really love to get a discussion on this, because the more I talk, the more I learn, the more perspectives I hear, the more I have a better understanding of where the Arsenal squad needs to go. So please like, favourite, subscribe, comment in the comment section, share with whoever you want to share it with, get people messaging, let's try and hammer this out, get a consensus, and who knows, maybe one of these opinions will filter up to the top one of these days. They might actually spend some money on someone we feel is maybe not worth it at first, but man, some of the best purchases in history were a bit extravagant, but man, if it wins you the title and it ends this wait that Arsenal fans have been waiting for so long now, it'd be a memory in of itself. Anyways, this has been the Halcyon podcast on Arsenal's upcoming season, what I think has been wrong, what I think they need to do. How right am I have no idea, but in any event, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned for the next Halcyon podcast. Will probably be dropping in the next week or so. I've done 3 today, so there's plenty of content for you to sink your teeth into. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Come on, you mighty Gunners! And stay tuned for the next episode.